Welcome back to the Pathmakers podcast. As usual, I'm really excited about the guests we have today. I feel like I'm always excited, but it's just the people that I end up meeting on here are super interesting. So today we're very fortunate to have Mateo Melgar in the house. Thank you, Mateo. Thank you for coming.
No, thank you, Edwin. Hi, everyone.
Yeah. So Mateo, could you please introduce yourself to people who don't know you? Who is Mateo Melgar?
Thank you. So I am a digital entrepreneur and freelancer. I live in Mexico. So I've been working remotely and running a freelance business since 2016. Uh, Basically, I was able to scale it to six figures without ever leaving my country, and that's what we're going to discuss today, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, from correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I found online, it seems like it's a lot with like content writing, like very writing focused. I saw you have like a newsletter, like Make Money Online, right? But I was also just like really impressed with like the clients you worked with. Like you worked with Beehive, which I thought was like really cool. Um, I guess like there's a lot to talk about and unpack there, but one thing I want to, I'm just really curious about what were you doing before writing? Like before, you mentioned you started in 2016. Like what was before that? Like,
So it actually started in 2016. Before that, I was teaching English because I was like 21, 22, and that was the only thing that I basically was able to do for a living. But it was a very underpaid job, to be honest, because it's not like a subject uh, in school, more like a skill they require in Mexico. So um, I eventually wanted to find something that I could do from home. That was quite a unrealistic expectation at that time because there were not remote jobs, or there were not many remote jobs in my hometown, or or at least no, they were not promoted. So I started just freelancing in Upwork, and I opened a profile, and I eventually landed a first gig as a virtual assistant, and I kind of grew from there in the administrative, aspect of things.
okay, okay. So you went from like English teacher to then like Upwork. You started as a VA, which I think most people know, virtual assistant, and then you kind of like work your way up. I mean, that's pretty cool. Most like I would say, coming from like a VA stance, and I think like I'm assuming like your English background helped since you were teaching it, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, Sadly, BA is sometimes a very underestimated role, but we all need to start somewhere. So I started making 3.5 per hour, but I always have the goals of growing and learning. And the good thing about being a virtual assistant is that you don't have a specific niche. Like you can be working in social media, you can be working in content, marketing, and ads, or whatever, and you start learning a bit of everything about how to run an online business, which is very, very helpful in the future.
I guess I never thought about that because, yeah, I guess virtual assistants are kind of like jack of all trades, if if that sounds right. Uh, I guess focusing on your content business. So, from what I've seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, for the most part, it seems like you are kind of like brought on to write like blog posts. Is that accurate? Or is that not accurate at all?
That's part of it. To be honest, it really goes to understanding how a sustainable freelance business runs, and the good thing about content is that most of the times you can get paid by value. Like you create a specific asset and you get paid for that, regardless of how much time you use, on the production. But also another thing to consider is that those type of gigs, you can say that sometimes aren't like ongoing. So every freelancer that's hoping to run a sustainable business, especially if they have a family, they need to look for some fixed gigs that could do. I mean, that they could do every month. So I have some customers that I do customer support for them, help with documentation, or even manage operations partially. And also that's what allows me to supplement with content creation, writing. And most of the times, clients use me for both. Like they give me some fixed hours on the month for administrative stuff or managing staff or something like that, and they also want me to help them with content or documentation.
Okay, so like there is like kind of like the things that I saw, like blog posts, content writing, but there's also like the other stuff that's like you mentioned, like the administrative stuff, running
The thing is that the things
operations.
that you do, customer support, for example, that's something you will do every day, I mean, weekday. So even if it's just 1 hour that you're getting paid for, or 2 hours that you're getting paid for, if you do that for two or three clients or whatever you're doing, you need to have like a base, something that's fixed, and that's something that won't end as soon as you finish the asset. For example, they want you to create an ebook, or yeah, a set of 5 blog posts. Once you deliver that, you have no warranties that the work will keep happening. So I always recommend freelancers to have some sort of base income, and then use their extra time they'll have to expand in other aspects.
Hmm. That's interesting. I guess I've always thought of freelancers as, you kind of, it's like kind of like the risk you mentioned where you could have like work, but then if you don't have work, you have like no fixed income. So you kind of like are up in the air at that point. And like you mentioned, of course, it's very important if you have a family. It's not just yourself anymore. Actually, one thing I do want to go into, I've seen you kind of like a happiness, like family first entrepreneur. Like, what does that really mean to you, and how do you like distinguish that, compared to, I guess, maybe other people?
I think that it's because it really goes to why you're doing things. At least for me, like for example, in my case, I didn't start uh, freelancing or trying to make money online because I wanted to, have a ton of money, or X or Y's goals that are very, I mean, popular in social media. No, I just wanted to first have some income to provide for myself, for my family, for my kids. So that's how I started, and that's what remained with me as the business grew. Because you always have opportunities to make more. Like it's just a matter of investing more of your time, investing more of your health, investing more of your other resources that you have. It's just a formula. Like you put in more, you'll get more out of it. But I guess I always try to focus, especially because I have a quite a difficult history with mental health. I always try to focus on being okay first, feel happy about what I'm doing, and the rest is secondary. Like I don't want to start a billionaire company. I don't really care about that. I prefer to have a comfortable lifestyle and also be able to have a real life besides work, something like that.
Right. So like work life balance is like very important, and I guess I've kind of heard this from some other people. I'm not sure if this applies to you necessarily, but prioritizing or at least having some sort of like boundaries between work and family. Does that sound kind of true?
um yeah, definitely, because in the meantime you need to respect both things, like especially when I say I focus on happiness first, doesn't mean that I don't focus on work at all, or that diminish it in some way. They, like, limits allow you to respect both sides, because sometimes, like, the most common thing you'll see is that people are absorbed by their business or their work, and they end up neglecting family or health. But you can also like do the opposite, and be responsible with your clients or with the work that you are doing, because your commitments or your approach to enjoying life gets into the way. So it's basically limits. It's not you are putting one thing over the other. It's you're living a wholesome life in some way.
Mm, okay. I think it makes like a lot of sense. Like, having those two in balance, right? Not focusing just on work and neglecting your health, and obviously there's also the family part as well. Um, I guess one thing I do want to pivot now for a sec on the work part. I know that's like uh, it is kind of interesting, but how did you go from? This is probably like a very very loaded question, but like there's like the $350 an hour like virtual assistant to then writing for like Beehive, like that. There's like a huge gap there. I'm kind of curious, like if you can kind of like maybe summarize, or even just take us through the whole thing. Like, what did that look like?
I think the first thing that you need to set up for this is your mindset. Like a lot of people, like it's the predominant mindset is that you are where you are and there's nothing you can do about it, right? A lot of people just live a life like that, like saying, "Oh," uh, and I don't want to go into professional example because every profession is respectable, but some people are like, "Oh, I'm going to be this for the rest of my life. There's nothing better for me." And when you are thinking like that, well, that's gonna be true because that's what's gonna happen. So the fact that I started as a BA, I never felt like, oh, I'm just a helper, or I'm just an assistant, and that's gonna be it forever. Like I actually had to set goals. For example, go from a 3.5 BA to go to a 5.5 per hour BA. So I always try to imagine the next step, even if it was difficult. So eventually, I was already making, $12 per hour, performing customer support tasks. And but that doesn't mean that I wanted to end up there either. And especially as my family grew, I needed to adapt and try to grow as well. But it all starts first with mindset. Like you need to believe that something better is going to come for you. Of course, it's not going to happen magically. You need to work your way to it. But if you don't believe it, it's never going to happen. Um, the second thing that you need to do, in my opinion, is also become good at selling yourself because you're like I'm the same person that I was in that time. Probably I increased my skills in some way, but it's not only the fact that you know a lot, have a degree. You need to learn how to sell that to other people, and sometimes it's also based on beliefs. Like you need to have confidence and dare to speak better of yourselves to others in resumes or portfolios, profiles, cover letters, or whatever that's required for you to grow. So for me, social proof is a very important part of that. Like always getting social proof from other people. Like that was back in the day. I would ask everyone for a LinkedIn recommendation or Upwork review or whatever, and at some you keep growing with that and always doing a good job, always asking for more social proof, and that's what eventually builds momentum for you to be able to work with anyone in the same community.
I see. So it's kind of like just over time, like evolving, like your mindset, but then how like your goals, social proof you mentioned, all that kind of just like it's like a snowball, if I can make that analogy.
Yeah, because it's also not something that happens in one day or 2 or 6 months. For example, I'm speaking that I started to enjoy the most of these benefits probably 4 or 5 years after I started. So uh, of course I could have gone faster if I had, but I also had a family. I also was finishing school, other stuff. Like it can go faster, but doesn't mean will happen in a day or two. Like you really need to put in the work. And also you need to be super committed to the things you do because if you don't do a good job as a freelancer, then no recommendation for you, no review, or even worse, that you can eventually get some negative shoutouts.
Yeah, that's definitely true. With with your like freelance work, what I guess like what are some challenges that you have faced? I mean, it seems like you maybe there's like some bad reviews. I don't think you have bad reviews. Like that might be a challenge, but are there any like unique challenges that you faced, or was it just all smooth sailing uphill?
Mm, most people would say skill is the first thing, but to be honest, the first thing is consistency. You need to be super reliable. Like if your client asks you something, don't go 2 days without answering. Like you'll probably answer, as soon as you can, a couple hours in the same day. If you commit to a due date, you deliver on that due date. So those are things that don't come with training. You need to commit to those types of things. So most freelancers, I think, are challenged in that aspect. There are a lot of talented people, but a lot of them are not reliable, or they're not good communicators, or they're not good at submitting work on time. My challenge, I think, comes when it comes to scaling. Like I've been able to productize myself in some ways, and I've actually worked with quite some clients at the same time without having issues because of their own systems that I created for it and the type of clients I've chosen to work with. But at some point, you're always limited by your own capabilities. So while I've been able to expand in some way, I'm not scaling extremely because there are some limitations to it. So 2014 for me, I mean 2024 for me is the year when I want to, you know, scale in some other aspects. Not a freelance business, but some other vertical of my own business and personal brand and some other income streams. Because yes, when you will always get to a point when your time runs out. It's already sold. So you need to find ways to still grow your business because inflation keeps happening. You can lose clients. Expenses are always increasing. So you always need to think about the future.
That's a good point because like as a freelancer, right? If you're just by yourself, you only have what 24 hours in a day, and that's
Yeah,
it.
I've been always I haven't been very good at working with other freelancers or subcontractors. I don't really like it because it's hard. Like you need to get very reliable people. It's basically you need people that are as good or better than you are doing what you do. So it's tricky, but that doesn't mean like I respect some people because they are very good at it. I haven't gotten to that point, but I want to get to the point that I can still scale the business without or don't get stuck at the same revenue forever.
Right. You're talking about like your businesses and like you have like the content writing, but you also have like your newsletter, like the Make Money Online newsletter. Like, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory on there, but could you kind of like even give like a brief overview, like what has been maybe some of like the most interesting things that have come out of the newsletter? Because I'm sure, maybe you've had like some interesting opportunities come from it. Yeah, if you could explain more on that.
Probably the most important lesson I got in from it is something that the creator Justin Wells mentioned at some point. Like 99% of people consume content and just I don't remember the exact ratio, but 1% or less they create content. And who's making money out of content? The ones who are creating in the meantime. So at first you always feel like, oh, I have nothing interesting to say, or no one will want to follow me or read my stuff. But I think as long as you start, there always be small percentage of people that will resonate with what you want to share. And for me, that was the most important lesson. Like you don't need to be Gary Vee for people to actually get interested in your things. Like all you need to do is put yourself out there, and some people will automatically resonate with you because you are similar, you are going through similar stuff, or they are wanting to be like you in some way, whatever. But yeah, it's uh, it's more a matter of like trust is everything. Like most people will have this imposter syndrome and they're super experts in something, but if they're afraid that they have nothing interesting to say when that's actually not true.
Have you had like subscribers like email you back out and saying like, "Oh, this is like super interesting," like they like just super resonate with it?
Yeah, and it was actually very very confusing, I would say, at the beginning because I was like, oh, there's like, for example, at that point, there's like 100 subscribers, and they would still email me like, oh, I like this. Can you talk about this? And you know, it's it's mind blowing at the beginning because you're like, is this real? Like I'm not an expert, or you always feel like you're not an expert, but what some things are first nature to you, some other people are thirsty to learn about those topics, and they would actually
Right.
pay you to learn about those topics.
So have you gotten? I think this is going to be a yes, but it seems like you've gotten even just client work from the newsletter.
Yeah, and also some coaching opportunities, some course sales. My course is currently like I kind of archive it to improve it. At the moment, it's not live, but yeah, it's a good way to start. Like a newsletter is a great funnel for a lot of opportunities. Some of them are not money related sometimes even, but everything that comes from it is good, and it's a very personal way to build an audience
Hmm.
because people can still email you, you can still reply to them, and you can create the meaningful connections from it.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, how many subscribers are there on there right now? Because I don't think on Beehive you can see that.
I think we're at 5K right now.
Wow.
I don't have exact data right here, but yeah, something like that.
That's a lot. That's very very impressive.
Thank you. Mhm.
I mean, so like you have like the newsletter, and by the way, last thing about that, when did you start the newsletter?
Oof, you got me unprepared. I think it was about a year ago, probably 14 months. I don't really remember, but it was around this time last year.
12, 14
Yeah,
months
something
from
like that.
0 to 5K subscribers. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and with all honesty, I haven't probably invested as much as I should in on that side of the business. But yeah, I'm very excited to keep working on it in 2024, and also you know try to monetize it more for in other ways.
For sure. One one I guess I want to do another pivot back to the content business. You know, you mentioned how like at the very end, when I asked, "Oh, like how did you get Beehive?" It's like kind of like the culmination of the snowball. And I've seen you work with like other pretty large clients. Is there some sort of like secret sauce to landing them, or is it kind of all in the like because you're in the content space creating content, they find you through there?
I think that's I think many people believe in ads, for example, or knocking on doors. But when you have opened organically one or two doors that are good, like right after that, it's just a matter of time until you connect with the right people. My last 4 or 5 clients have all been like uh, word of mouth, or they're connected to someone I know, or I found them in a paid online community, or the best opportunities come in that way, because people basically they remove all the placeholders themselves. Like they trust you, they like you, or they trust and like someone and uh, they feel compelled to work with you because you're part of the community. So it sounds very lazy, but it's that's the result of paid work. I mean, that's the result of hard work after a few years. Like then you can just uh, connect with other people and start working.
I mean, yeah, that makes complete sense, right? Like, I mean, obviously you're professional, you've done this, like you're just looking at the stuff you've done, I'm like, yeah, Mateo is like the guy for content writing. Um, and I think you touched on a good point there with like a paid community. Like there's like it seems like a million of paid communities, but it seems like from what I've gotten, it seems like they're kind of like more tailored or like higher quality in a sense.
The thing is that the fact that they are paid, it basically removes how do you say that? Yeah, people that are not serious about online business, because most people won't invest 100, 200, 300 or more in a community, to be honest. So that alone, you know, puts these resources in a good level. To be honest, I'm just a member of one community, which is Small Bets. To be honest, I don't even use its full potential, so that's why I haven't invested in others. But you probably I probably have landed like two or three job opportunities at loan from the community, and one of them has been very very profitable. So you know the intro membership fee has paid itself uh, multiple times. So definitely consider investing in something like that, or some other cohort course opportunities if you are interested in pursuing a certain path.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And like, I mean, right, for me personally, like, I think that's how we met, right? In small bets community. Like
Hmm.
that's also the only paid community I have. And it's like, I mean, I won't touch on it more because people can find out for themselves, but like I think it's like pretty good. And like to your point, it's not super expensive, but like there's kind of like that barrier that like, I think it removes, to your point, like a lot of like the non super serious people. Um from joining, really, because it's not a whole lot, but it's enough to like make people stop and think like, do I really want to join?
Definitely.
And so like with that one, I keep doing pivots, I'm so sorry about this,
No worries.
but one thing, going back to kind of like not necessarily family and work, but one of the things that correct me if I'm wrong, but one thing I found out, you like almost having like no meetings and calls. which also thank you for being on here because I know this is like a
Mhm.
synchronous thing. So how do you manage that with being a freelancer? Because I would imagine, I'm not a freelancer by the way, but I would imagine, being a freelancer, you have client meetings. How do you handle that? And like, I guess how could other people, you know, have like minimal meetings?
I think that at some point, like at the beginning, you basically take every job or every gig or every opportunity that you can. But at some point, you can start being more intentional about designing how you will run the business. And so I don't know how to explain it, but you connect with people that are just like you. Like, for example, all of my clients as of now, I have one meeting with them a week, 10 minutes. Sometimes we don't have any for weeks. Some others we have never had one, and that works because mm, I think especially in the small business or a small online business aspect, more people are feeling just the same as me. Like they want to have freedom. They don't want to have busy, tight schedules. Um, and when it's a more corporate client, for example, I'm pretty sure they have more meetings. But that's when you decide. I want to work with someone that will require me to be online a specific time of the day, every day, or every Wednesday or whatever, and you get to decide. In my opinion, the truth is I rarely see people get something productive or out of meetings. Like sometimes they just repeat stuff over that they could have just sent on a email or Slack message. So yeah, I think it's not difficult when you find people that think like yourself, and you know things just flow. And I'm not a complete enemy of meetings. Like but I some people approach it in a way that they have 10 clients and they talk with each one of them every day, for example. So definitely that's not a way of life. That should be or could be very hard. So I prefer to you know deliver results, work as synchronous as possible, and when you deliver and are reliable and check in every day to do your stuff, no one will ever complain.
Oh, that sounds like pretty solid advice. One last thing on that. Do you have like any tips that you find like when you do have meetings, or like what can make like how does someone make the most out of one? Because some stuff can be sent in an email, but in your opinion, what is stuff that would maybe require a meeting instead of an email?
Um, to make the most out of a meeting, you need to create a document beforehand. It can be like an agenda, uh, just a weekly summary of some aspects, and basically that is the meeting. The only thing you do is go through it and live with your team in a few minutes, and if it's something that should be adjusted or done, you start arranging things to be done later. But what happens when you can't meet on Wednesday that you had that meeting? Well, you had the document, so you just log in to Notion on Google Docs, whatever that you're using, and try to work through the items asynchronously. So uh, what I've seen in other places is that you gather 10 people, and then everyone says something positive about their week, and then they start going through things that are somehow unrelated to everyone at the same time. So in some way you're wasting 10 people's time at the same time, because you are going through items that are probably unrelated to half of the people, sometimes unrelated to anyone but two people on the meeting. In the meantime, that's just a um, yeah uh, how do you say that, expanded way of wasting time, because it's not just for one person's time. It's like everyone is probably feeling the same and sometimes during the call. So if you are still wanting to meet, well, you can fix it by doing more specific meetings, and removing people that are not required to be there, and also coming in with a plan that is solid, and setting a time limit, and things like that.
Right, and that just made me think of like how I'm not sure if you follow this much, but Jeff Bezos, he likes to start his meetings with a document as well. It's just something that like whenever I think of Amazon and Jeff Bezos, I always think of like a crisp document to start a meeting. Um,
I've seen it work like that because, like what I say, what happens when you can't meet? You still have the document, and you can still meet in some way, even if the meeting won't be possible. For example, December was a good example of that. Most people take some time off, or some others, can't meet at the same time. So something like that, a base document would be perfect.
right. I mean that makes complete sense. And so like just to kind of like wrap this up, we're almost at time, but what one piece of advice, or even like a couple pieces of advice if you want, would you give to like maybe Mateo back in 2016, or maybe someone who's like in that position who wants to, just get like a more ahead in life? I think you touched on it earlier, but maybe kind of just like sum it up.
And I will tell him or tell this person to focus on decision making. Like, how will you use your time? What type of people you'll work with? Um, what's gonna be your next move or next step? Because I think we are very used to taking, especially at the beginning, we're very used to taking on whatever comes our way. But we should be very, at some point that's okay because probably sometimes you don't have a lot of choices. But you need to be very clear and intentional about what you're doing because, especially as a freelancer, there are hundreds and dozens of hundreds of clients you can work with. So you need to be very intentional. Like, I am making the best use of my time. I am charging enough. Like, literally, people that make 100, 200 per hour, they don't have two brains or three hands or anything. Like, they just have find a way to sell what some other people sell at 20 per hour. They have find a way to sell it to other people in a better way. So they pay for it. So you need to start, being most respectful of yourself at the beginning because you can, if you don't do that early, you can, waste times, years of your life being underpaid or feeling negatively about the work you're doing, like unfulfilled or something like that. So yeah, probably you need to start trying to make the leaps faster. Of course, you don't want to charge too much to someone if you don't have the value to get paid for that. But you want to start making those leaps faster, and it all comes to decision making, like how to use your time, uh, how to charge more, and for example, in my case today, how to work less. Because at this point, the only way to try to scale my business will be using my time in activities that would, in some sort of way, bring more passive income, not just client work by the hour, for example.
I mean, that all makes sense, right? It sounds like, to sum it up, being selective, in your decision making, which clients you want to work with, but also selling yourself like correctly. Who, to your point, if you charge $200 an hour, they had to sell that $200 an hour service, whatever it may be, to someone, um, compared to not $200 an hour, and then, yeah, like being very selective and
For
like at your
example,
point.
something that can complement this, I have rarely seen someone saying, "Oh, you charge too much." Like, I never heard that in my, like, probably once or twice, and that's just because I was speaking with the wrong person. But the truth is that I have never heard someone say, "Oh, that's too much." Yeah, that's very rare, and that just gives you the idea that sometimes or most freelancers are undercharging, or they're providing the right value, so people will pay still for it because the demand uh, just allows it.
It's kind of like the like abundance mindset. Like there's always more clients. There's always more jobs.
Yeah, you need to trust that you will have more opportunities, not and if you have good ones, enjoy them and work well and get paid for it. But sometimes you need to recognize that probably you're not making the best deal out of some client or something like that, or you're probably not liking what you're doing. So you need to trust that you can quit and find something better.
Right. I mean, kind of like going back to like the lifestyle design, right? like picking and choosing which clients and being very selective about that. Um, but yeah, I think that is all the time we have for today. Thank you, Mateo, for your time and meeting with me synchronously. And that, with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this episode of the Pathmakers podcast. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.